On February 28th, a missile cuts through the night sky over the Strait of Hormuz. This is the exact moment the region's holding pattern fractures. The trigger was highly specific. A drone successfully targeted and brought down an American Apache helicopter. That single strike shattered the April 8th ceasefire timeline that diplomats had spent months trying to secure. The retaliation was immediate. U.S. forces launched proportional strikes, and within hours, Iran answered by raining missiles down on targets across Bahrain, Kuwait, and military command centers in Jordan. This chart maps out the Strait of Hormuz, a maritime choke point separating the combatants. The escalating crossfire is now spilling directly into these waters, threatening to bottleneck the 25% of the world's daily oil supply that relies on this exact route. In these contested waters, military hardware doesn't check passports. Commercial and shadow vessels navigating the Gulf are finding themselves caught in a blind maritime crossfire. The human toll registered almost immediately. When strikes hit a sanctioned vessel off the coast of Oman, 24 of the 28 crew members aboard were Indian nationals. 3 of them were killed. The response from New Delhi was swift. The Ministry of External Affairs took the rare diplomatic step of summoning the U.S. envoy to register a formal, strong protest over the loss of Indian citizens in an allied strike. The violence in the Gulf is not a distant, localized event. It has breached international borders, directly impacting Indian lives and forcing a hard pivot in the country's regional foreign policy. While the physical strikes play out in West Asia, the economic shockwaves are registering precisely here, on the trading floors of Mumbai. India's largest institutional investor, the Life Insurance Corporation of India, saw nearly 70,000 crore rupees wiped off its equity portfolio in a matter of days. This graph tracks crude oil prices against domestic inflation. As missiles fly over oil transit routes, crude prices spike toward $120 a barrel. For a massive oil importer like India, that immediately stokes fears of rising domestic inflation. To fight that inflation, central banks are forced to maintain or raise interest rates. That mechanism squeezes the profit margins of banking giants like SBI and HDFC, which together accounted for a massive chunk of LIC's total portfolio erosion. Geopolitical violence has a mathematical transmission wire. A missile in the Gulf translates directly into vaporized wealth for domestic Indian institutions. The erosion extends past banks and into India's physical infrastructure. Engineering giant Larsen & Toubro alone accounted for nearly 11% of LIC's total hit. That loss stems from deep physical exposure. 75% of L&T's international orders originate in West Asia, with up to 15,000 Indian workers currently deployed on projects that now face immediate delay or cancellation. Across the wider region, the economic strain is visible. The Indian rupee is facing downward pressure alongside the Philippine peso and the Korean won, while smaller economies like Sri Lanka brace for severe disruptions to their energy imports. But capital is also relocating. While banking and infrastructure indices drop, upstream oil drilling firms, green hydrogen ventures, and domestic defense manufacturers are seeing a sharp surge in market traction. This volatility is forcing a concentrated move into domestic defense contracts and upstream energy production, sectors that remain insulated from the physical risks of the Gulf corridor. The distraction of the Gulf War is creating opportunities for other regional powers. At 30,000 feet over the eastern Mediterranean, an aircraft carrying the defense ministers of Greece, France, and the Netherlands was recently subjected to sudden aerial interference. The source of the harassment was a squad of Turkish F-16 fighter jets, asserting dominance over Cypriot airspace and sending a pointed message to European officials. Turkey is utilizing the global focus on West Asia to expand its military footprint in northern Cyprus, a territory it has occupied since 1974, separated from the south by a UN-patrolled buffer zone. Cyprus finds itself highly exposed. NATO is currently fracturing as its own members harass each other in the skies, and the United States is consumed by its own domestic elections and the immediate crisis in the Persian Gulf. With traditional security umbrellas stretched thin, a dormant European conflict is thawing. Regional powers are now testing the limits of international borders, while Western protectors look elsewhere. Faced with this vulnerability, Cyprus is seeking a new guarantor of security. Instead of relying on a fractured NATO, Nicosia is turning to New Delhi to fortify its defenses. Their target acquisition is India's BrahMos missile. Flying at Mach 3 with a 300-kilometer range, it provides the exact supersonic deterrence required to keep Turkish warships out of contested Cypriot waters. By agreeing to arm Cyprus, India applies direct pressure to Turkey's doorstep. This map shows the strategic counterweight India is building against the Turkey-Pakistan defense axis. If finalized, this deal marks the first time an Indian-made weapon system of this caliber will be deployed into the eastern Mediterranean and the broader European theater. A BrahMos deployment on Cypriot soil effectively moves the front line of India's strategic interests into the eastern Mediterranean. It places Indian military hardware at the center of a European security dispute, countering the influence of the Turkey-Pakistan nexus on its own doorstep.